YouTube. We're
Yeah,
not.
just let me know when you put it on the YouTube. I'll just check.
Yeah, we're on YouTube, mate. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
live.
we're on YouTube. We'll just give it a couple of minutes, mate, and then we'll get cracking. Before we start, Steve, how you doing, mate? How you feeling?
Good mate, good. Apart from obviously last night, but a lot of comments this morning. Obviously, seen a lot of comments online. Obviously, to the podcast that we did last night, and yeah, overall, it's been a really good response from obviously the conversation we had last night as well. It was a tough chat to have straight after the game, and it's always hard to gather your thoughts. I think straight after a game, but I'll be honest with you, I think everything that we said last night was pretty accurate of where everything is at the moment, mate. Don't know
Mm.
about you.
Yeah, I mean, we did a podcast for those that haven't listened over on Patreon. Welcome all. Just a bit of an impromptu Zoom live over on YouTube. Just obviously with everything that's going on with Everton at the moment. And after last night's defeat on penalties to Southampton. Yeah, we did an instant match reaction, didn't we, over on the Patreon? And look, it's not getting any easier at the moment, and I don't want to come on here and speak cliches. I think we've just got to call a spade a little bit here and just look at the overall picture, what is actually happening in front of our eyes, and ultimately, we have two pictures emerging at Everton. One of them is the situation with the ownership and the takeover and the people above Sean Dyche and Kevin Thawer. And we all know the situation. Everton fans aren't stupid. Football fans aren't stupid. We know, obviously, the financial issues that we have. We know that we're trying to sort out a takeover. The football stadium, Bramley Moore, is being built. Um, the issue is at the moment, we have a footballing side of the business that is rapidly becoming just as much of a concern as the takeover and Farhad Moshiri and that situation off the pitch. And ultimately, yeah, there's no hiding place for Sean Dyche or the players right now. There's simply no hiding place. It is the form, it is, and the results is simply not good enough. It's unacceptable, Steve.
Mm.
I'm not one for knee-jerk reaction, and everyone's different. Everyone's emotional. Everyone is completely different, and everyone's valid to an opinion. I do now think you're heading into the realms of, if Sean Dyche was relieved of his duties, could he have any complaints? And I think when you sit there logically and you take a step back
Yeah,
and you think to yourself, right, could Sean Dyche have any complaints if he was relieved of his duties? I think the answer is no. I don't get any club with a functioning board with an owner that is involved. You would be hard pressed or hard pushed now to say that club wouldn't be at least be considering the manager's future. Um, Ultimately, he's not doing enough, is he? His remit this year was to keep Everton out of trouble, and I know it's early on in the season still,
yeah.
and that will be his argument. It's still very very early, but his remit is to keep Everton away from flirting from relegation, and not create some hysteria where all of a sudden we think we're in a relegation battle. But the issue is four straight defeats in the league, knocked out the League Cup in round three to a subpar Southampton team. I think Southampton were probably one of the worst teams you'll see to come to Goodison Park this season, if not the worst. Um, it's really, really difficult, really, really difficult. And there's no doubt about it. I think it's fair to say he's lost 90% of the fan base. Excuse my dog. He has lost 90% of the fan base now. So where do we go from here, Steve? You tell me, mate.
Yeah, I think you're right in regards to the fan base. Fan base, I think obviously we spoke about it last night about the reaction to the Beto sub, which I've seen a lot of people having pretty much the same opinion. Really, I think we're all a bit baffled by it. I think the overall stats, and I know it's something we like to bang on about sometimes on the channel, and it's something we've all spoke about. The overall stats for the manager don't look very good at the moment. If you actually have a look, conceded the most goals in Europe, lost the most matches, the second lowest average possession stats in European football. It's not working. Whatever the manager's trying to do at the moment is just not working. Obviously, I know he's heaped a lot of pressure on Jared Branthwaite coming back into the team, and I know us as a fan base have probably done that as well. Jared is, let's be honest, he is probably our most important player, which is crazy for a guy who didn't even start the season under Sean Dyche last season. It was due to the poor form of Michael Keane that he actually got in the side last season. So I think Sean Dyche he's looking a bit panicky. I think I mentioned a few times now on the pods this season is that I also mentioned it this morning that he's gone from a manager who doesn't make substitutions to now making terrible substitutions and panicking. His in-game management, which we spoke about many times on the podcast, it isn't great. It's not great, and I know it's something I've been speaking to people about this morning about. We've got the reality is the club have put themselves in a position where they hired Sean Dyche due to the situation of the club at the time. I suppose this is the overall failings of the club, really. If you keep hiring probably bang average managers, probably bar Carlo Ancelotti, you keep getting the same results. And something I mentioned to you before, just we come on it is the issue of him having only 8 to 9 months left on his deal. Is that an issue which is playing in the back of Sean Dyche's mind, Kevin Felwell's mind? The reality is the club is it's a bit of a crossroads. There's no one there really who's willing to make a decision on the manager. Personally, I said it on the podcast last night. I would actually give him the Leicester game. I think it's a must not lose away to Leicester. But then again, it just heaps all the pressure on those 2 home games, and it's kind of like the club. Really, we're living mouth to mouth, game to game. It's crazy, and it can't really keep going on like this. And eventually, there will have to be a change if this carries on. And the reality is, the players have got to do more as well. The players have definitely got to do more, not just putting everything at the door of Sean Dyche. I think the players, let's be honest, have been poor this season. Bar obviously even if like I've even looked at like the metrics in the Bournemouth game. If you actually look at the first half, it was actually a pretty even game. We didn't like batter Bournemouth. It wasn't like we were battering the door down to get a result. If you actually look at the metrics and the stats, it was a pretty even game. It was between 45 and 70 minutes where Everton took over in the game, and then Everton decided to throw away the game due to poor decisions, managerial, and also poor decisions from the players. So he's let's be honest, I watched his press conference last night at the end of the game. He keeps going on about he knew this was the job. He didn't realise the job was going to be as tough as it is. Circumstances off the pitch haven't helped, but I think, if I'm being honest, we're probably past that stage of making excuses over points deductions and stuff like that now. The manager, I think I said 14 players last night. It was actually 12, but if you actually have a look, he's worked with 14 because Michael Keane and Tarkowski were at Burnley at the time when he was there. So yeah, he's got an incredibly tough job on his hands. We all understand that, but we're just not seeing the performances and the style of play. We got outplayed, let's be honest, passing wise by a very, very poor Southampton team who looked like they knew they had a style. Where 20 months on, do we really know what Sean Dyche's style is? I don't personally.
It's okay, by the way, Steve, to be outpassed in a game against Southampton, against anybody.
Yeah,
It's okay not to have as much of the ball. It's okay not to play a certain way. It's okay to play the way you want to play if you're getting results. If you get results, everyone can kind of swallow that. And that's the sort of agreement you almost have when you take a Sean Dyche as a manager or a Sam Allardyce or anybody else of that ilk. You have almost an agreement in terms of, okay, we know it's not going to be pretty football. We know it's going to be a bit of a grind week in, week out. It's not going to be exciting, edge of your seat, fast, free flowing football. But the caveat to that is we will be hard to beat, a well drilled unit, well structured, and we will not get rolled over. And at the moment, for me, I see a team in front of our eyes that is everything that a Sean Dyche team isn't.
yeah,
I think we are a soft touch. I think we're very easy to beat at the moment. I think the structure is as bad as it's been for many of year. I don't see a team and a manager in it together. And it's easy for me to sit here and say that because it's cliche, but I don't. I don't see it. You don't see the players there looking confident in executing the game plan. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't know what the game plan is. I don't know what identity we're trying to be. I don't know what type of team we're trying to be at the moment. I don't see it. And I think the manager has completely lost his way at the moment. I really, really do. And I think he's now at a crossroads in his Everton tenure. It's do or die now. And it has that feeling. It has that feeling where, as the manager would rightly say, you can smell things. I think we can all smell it's do or die for him.
yeah,
And I've said this over on the Patreon, and for those that are maybe not members of the of you from the Bullens Patreon, the football club's in a bit of a they're caught on the hop here. And the fact of the matter is, the plan was never to obviously be in a position where we're able to consider removing the manager this early on in the season. The plan was never to even be thinking about removing the manager all season. The plan was to get to the end of the season, remain a Premier League club, preparing to move into Bramley Moor. Then the potential new owner, whoever that owner was going to be or is going to be, can then review the footballing operation side of the football club. And that includes Sean Dyche, it includes his staff, it also includes Kevin Thirlwell, Dan Purdy, and everybody else that's involved. They can then review it, assess it, and over the summer make the adequate decisions, or keep them, offer them new contracts, release them, whatever you want to do. The issue is we now find ourselves, a month or so into the season, and it's not. Is panic stations the right words? Alarm bells, I think, are ringing. I think that's probably the fair assessment. Alarm bells are ringing, and it could soon be panic stations. It could soon be panic stations. I think if you lose at Leicester, who are going to be a bottom half rival, a relegation rival, whatever you want to call them, I think then it's not just alarm bells. It's goodness me, where is the next win even going to come from? Where's the next point going to come from? Because that's the way you have to then start feeling. That's what happens. It's a human nature thing. And whilst you're trying to keep calm heads, and that's what the football club are trying to do, they're trying to keep calm heads here. They are in a bit of a state of a flux here where, again, they're caught on the hop. This was never in the plan. No one saw this coming. And that's probably been the biggest worry for me in all of this is just how much of a drop off and how drastic we've gone from being a solid unit, a really solid unit last year, generally speaking, solid, defensively, well structured, hard to beat. Teams know they're going to be in a game when they play against us. We're not a soft touch. So now, again, the first half last night against Southampton, Adam Lallana, I didn't see really one tackle going on him. And
no.
every time he got the ball, he was turning, little Cruyff turn, little 6-yard pass, give and go, dropping the shoulder. I didn't see anyone getting tight on him. I didn't see anyone roughing him up a
Uh,
little bit.
the Everton press last night was non-existent, and that was from everyone. Not wasn't a certain individual. Beto ran around as he usually does, not really with any conviction. But the midfield were just slow, ponderous, and I felt sorry for young Harrison Armstrong, if I'm honest. Being put in the midfield with Mangala and Decore, who, let's be honest, Mangala doesn't look fit at all yet. He doesn't look up to the Sean Dyche standards of Dyche fit. Decore, let's be honest, I think we can all see he's slowing down. I think we can all see that now, that the decision to maybe give him that extra year. I'm sure that's why he was happy with the extra year, because don't get me wrong, he had credit in the bank, as the word that's going around at the moment. But I think I felt really sorry for Harrison. I don't know what you thought in regards to Harrison Armstrong, because I felt really sorry for him in the middle of the park of them two last night.
He escapes criticism. He completely escapes criticism. He's not the problem.
No,
And I think that's the way you have to look at a 17-year-old kid who's having his dream come true, coming out of Goodison Park, starting for the Toffees. He escapes criticism. The fact that maybe, in my opinion, you're even looking at criticising a young lad, or anyone looking at criticising a young lad, that you're barking up the wrong tree. Ultimately, we're not in the position we are because of Harrison Armstrong. It was a good game to blood him in. It was a good game to give him some experience, get him minutes, just like it was for Roman Dixon as well. So, they're going to have ups and downs. They're going to have games where they look pretty bright, they look sharp. They're also going to have games where they find it really tough. And ultimately, when a team is in a rough patch, which is what Everton are struggling, it's even more difficult for a young lad to then come in and kind of be a little bit more fluid or express himself because the team's struggling. And that's very, very difficult. And if Everton had started the season well, there's no doubt about it. Harrison Armstrong would have got minutes in the Premier League. He'd have come off the bench. And that's a fact. But the fact that we haven't started well is the reason why he kind of hasn't really been put in during, obviously, Premier League games. And that's why we felt the need, right, we're going to give him some minutes against Southampton last night. So he escapes criticism for me. I
I
think if
thought
I'm being
I was
saying sorry.
I was going to say I thought Roman Dixon showed glimpses of quality last night. Obviously, I know he's probably a bit rash for the foul on Frazier, but I thought he looked to get a bit of pace into the game. Obviously, but using his pace down up and down the right. I thought he did well at times defensively as well. He had a few different people on that side during the game, but I actually thought he stuck to his game. I thought he's probably the bright spot of last night, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, he adds pace to the team, doesn't he? And that's obviously something that we're severely lacking. We're lacking pace, and that's what he does give you. He took a yellow card in the first half after the foul on Ryan Fraser, but he did incredibly well to even get back into that position and even attempt to make a tackle. And that is just simply down to his pace. So he's always going to have, an upside to his game when you have pace like that. And there's definitely a player there. You can definitely work with him. His size is maybe a little bit of an issue. His height maybe a little bit of an issue. But there's definitely something you can work. There's potential there to work with Roman Dixon. And if a really good loan offer would have came in before the deadline, he probably would have been loaned out, even with our right back issues. But none really surfaced. So we kept him with us, and I don't think he did himself any issue last night. I thought he was okay. Again, I thought Harrison Armstrong, I think he avoids criticism. Um, we're in a really, really tough time at the moment, a really, really tough time. And I said in the build up to yesterday, the big game was Leicester. That is still the big game. That doesn't excuse last night's defeat, by the way. I'm not making an excuse there. But the big game is Saturday, and all eyes are on Saturday. And if the manager does get a result on Saturday, say he wins at Leicester, it doesn't negate anything that's gone before us. And I think that needs to be made very, very clear. It doesn't negate anything.
No.
All it does is it's not a stay of execution, but no manager in professional football should be let off just because we have off the field problems. No manager should be let off because you still have a job to do. You're in a professional position. You have to bring something to the table. And at the moment, Sean Dyche is bringing very, very little to the table, very, very little, whilst being paid handsomely. So if we do get a result against Leicester, it doesn't excuse the form. It doesn't excuse what's happening. He's got to get a grip of it, and he's got to then continue that. And ultimately, this now represents a big chance for Sean Dyche, Steve. We play Leicester City away and Crystal Palace at home. I'm not being funny. I think most Everton fans going into this sort of, these sort of two fixtures at the start of the season, you'd be looking at it and going, we need 4 points.
Yeah.
You need a draw and a win. You draw at Leicester and you beat Palace. That's what you'd probably be looking at. Or you win it, obviously win at Leicester and draw against Palace. You need 4 points. And I think we still should be aiming for 4 points. Just because we have problems off the pitch, just because we have a lot of issues, that's one facet of the football club. That's one issue. And no one's denying that. And I'm not coming on here and I'm not talking on the Patreon and saying that it's not a difficult job right now being at Everton, because it's very, very difficult, not just for the manager, for Kevin Thawer, for Dan Purdy, the recruitment team, even the players to an extent. It's very, very difficult. But I'm also not going to let them off the hook, because we can't let them off the hook, because we still got to have some standards as a football club. And the standards are the bare minimum. The bare minimum is we don't flirt with relegation, because we shouldn't be flirting with relegation. I don't think the players are particularly, I don't think it's a particularly great crop of players. but I do think there's more in the tank than what we're currently seeing. They're not the 20th place team in the league. They're not. They're better than that. They are. And when people say to me, we look how much we spend, we look at who we've let go. I don't really care. I understand the situation. Again, I fully understand and I appreciate that. But I still look at this squad of players and I still think a lot of half decent managers would be getting more of a tune out of them than what we're currently getting.
And it's a really good point. And obviously, we've got some questions coming in on the YouTube as well. And thank you for everyone who's joined us as well. Is Dyche going to improve the dressing room atmosphere? This is Tyrone Hollow. There's been seen a few comments in the last 24 hours about Sean Dyche potentially losing the dressing room. Bobble, what's your opinion? I said last night on the pod that the body language of some of the players it is looking a bit dubious, maybe.
Yeah, the only way to improve a dressing room is by winning games. That's it. That's the only way. He's got to win games. He's got to start picking up points. The confidence is on the floor. There's no hiding place from that. You can't lie. It's on the floor. Back to back defeats when we take the lead. Go 2-0 Bournemouth against Bournemouth and Aston Villa respectively. Lose both for them. You then lose a penalty shootout to a lackluster Southampton team, a second string Southampton team. The confidence is on the floor. There's no doubt about it. And they're fragile right now. They're a fragile group. You can see that. You don't need me to come on here and tell you that. But the only way to solve that is by, as I've previously said on the Patreon, is biting down on the gum shield and picking up your win. That's what they need to do. But until they do that, they will be a fragile bunch. They're mentally a fragile bunch. They're a vulnerable team right now, and that starts with the manager. He's very vulnerable as well. So yeah, in terms of improving the dressing room, improving the atmosphere around the place, the only way you can do that is by winning games of football. That's the only way, Steve.
Do you see any way that maybe he might look at changing the formation or anything like that going forward? Has it been spoken about going forward? Because I know I've seen another one. A lot of people saying, is it the tactics from Dyche? Does he need to implement a new strategy? Is it? I know because it's funny you say this about the atmosphere in the dressing room because I spoke to Alan Stubbs a couple of weeks ago when he was in the studio, and he said there's still room in football for like getting the team together and doing team bonding stuff as well, which was very interesting because I think these days you don't think that happens still, but Alan Stubbs was actually saying it's still quite a thing to do in football. But the tactics side for me, it is a bit of a worry because going forward, I just haven't really seen anything that he will change really his tactics. He's not really changed his formation much since he's come to Everton. He's flirted with a three at the back at times, but it's been like one game here and there. It was actually the last day of the season, which he tried against Bournemouth, and we went three at the back. But I do think he is very limited when it comes to that side of it as a manager. I don't think it's probably his strongest part, but I don't know what you think, Bob, in regards to like changing the tactics. Like I know there's been talk of a three at the back or a five at the back. Do you have any thoughts on that?
He is what he is. The manager is what he is, and he's not going to deviate from. He's not all of a sudden going to become this, free flowing football manager or pragmatic manager. He is what he is. He has a plan A, and he doesn't really want to deviate from the plan A. His plan B, if you can call it a plan B, is what you saw at Aston Villa. That is the club's plan B, where you go with three centre halves and you have wing backs. They're a little bit reluctant to do that. They've been a little bit reluctant to do that all season so far, but that is the other option that we kind of have in our armory. I do think there's sometimes a place for it, especially with the current crop of players that we have. I think a few players would kind of flourish under it, under a back three with wing backs a little bit more than a flat back four. Especially given the fact that I think it's fair to say. I think Seamus Coleman, Ashley Young, and Vitaly Mikalenko, I think they'd all probably benefit with the back five at the moment, just given the form that they're in. And I think also Nathan Patterson, I think we've seen him at his best when he's played in that right wing back role. Obviously, he's imminently returning; he is back to full training with the team. But I do think he would obviously benefit as a right wing back. I think he does excel there a little bit more than as a right back. But Sean Dyche is Sean Dyche. He's not all of a sudden going to change. And this is what I'm trying to say. When you hire a manager like Sean Dyche, Sam Allardyce, those sort of managers, you have an acceptance. You have to accept it. You shake hands before you sign the contract. I know what you're going to bring. We can all see how you're going to play, and you have to accept that. But the caveat is, you get as results, and that's what it is. We'll accept the slow football. We'll accept the negative football. We'll accept hand in 75% possession if you're a stats man over to Southampton, but in return, we expect a result from it.
Yeah.
And the
No,
minute you don't get a result, the minute you don't get results and the results start going south, you have an issue. And that's the same at any club. If you want to play that way, the moment you start losing games, you're in trouble.
yeah, and I think that's obviously what Wayne Ellis in the comments said. Every game you give him from now on is only papering over the cracks, and I do get that point as well. I think we spoke about that last night as well, Wayne. So I think it's a really good point, and it is. Let's be honest. Is Sean Dyche going to get a new contract at Everton? Very, very unlikely. I'd say right now as we speak. Question from ACAM, Bobble and Steve. Honestly, what's your personal view? Surely you're both in agreement. He has to go. I give my view last night. I think he gets the Leicester game. And I think it's a must not lose against Leicester on Saturday. But Bobble, what's your opinion on that?
I would be heading to Leicester. Yeah, I would be heading to Leicester. I don't think you could have sacked him after Aston Villa. Because your season's not defined at Aston Villa. And that's not excusing me surrendering a 2-goal lead. But I think if you were going to sack him, you probably should have sacked him after the Bournemouth game. I don't think sacking him after the Aston Villa game was probably the right call, or would have been the right call, because, like I say, going to Aston Villa and expecting a result, it's tough. It's tough. They're a very, very good team. They're a Champions League outfit. So I think if you were going to sack him, I think the game was going to be Bournemouth. The fact that obviously we rolled into Aston Villa, I think you have to then take it with a pinch of salt. If we'd have lost the game 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-2, 2-1, whatever it was, you would have just said, well, it's a tough game. Your season's not defined there. Granted, it was very, very disappointing to take a 2-goal lead and obviously surrender that. And then Southampton penalties. If you look at the facts behind it, we do have a bug going round.
Yeah,
Dominic Calvert-Lewin and James Garner both got pulled out first thing yesterday morning. Vitaly Mikalenko was still poorly from the weekend. Obviously, he got taken off at Aston Villa. Idrissa Gana-Gueye had a personal issue, so he couldn't attend the game. Jordan Pickford, they just wanted to manage his minutes. Same with Tarkowski, a slight niggle, but nothing too serious. So when you take all that into consideration, again, I'm not excusing it,
no,
because I don't think there is any excuses. When you look at the run since December the 16th, I think you can have little excuses. But I think now, in my opinion, I head to Leicester. Yeah, I'd be heading to Leicester, and then I'd be reviewing it after Leicester. Again, the issue is the club have been caught on the hop here, because this was never in the plan. And sacking managers never in the plan. It's never in the plan. But when you have an absent owner, when you have all the off-field issues that we have, this was the last thing that we needed. It's absolutely the last thing that we needed. Was let's be honest, it's a collapse. It's an utter
yeah,
collapse to start the season. So I don't think sacking him after Aston Villa would have been the right call. I really, really don't. Again, I'm just going to reiterate, because I think you should have sacked him against Bournemouth if that was the case after the Bournemouth game. So I go to Leicester now with a little bit, I've got to go there hopeful that we can get something. I know there's a lot of fans that would like to see Sean Dyche relieved of his duties. Obviously, if we win, is it a stay of execution? No, it's not, because again, it doesn't excuse what's gone before us, and he knows that. He knows that. He's old enough and he's experienced enough to know the situation. He knows that he's under pressure. He's not stupid. He also knows that he's got no whatever one of the publications said recently regarding a contract, being offered to Sean Dyche. That's not true. He hasn't been offered a new contract. And there's no plans to talk about a contract at the moment. There's no plans at all, because ultimately we don't have a roadmap above us, do we? Above Kevin Tharwell, we have the likes of Colin Chong and Richard Kenyon, who are in a role. Colin Chong's in a role that he didn't want. He didn't want the role. He's been asked to stand in, and he stood in for a little while longer than he expected, really. But we don't have a roadmap as a football club right now, and we don't have any direction. And this is what I put to the listeners and to you, Steve. The issue at the moment is sacking Sean Dyche is okay to do. Okay, so if you lose at Leicester, and let's just say Fard Mashiri sits down and talks to Kevin Tharwell and the temporary board, and he makes the call, I'm going to have to relieve him of his duties. I don't think anybody could have any complaints in terms of Sean Dyche's camp. No complaints. You shake hands, okay. You put him on gardening leave, you pay him off, whatever you need to do to get it done, whatever. The issue I then have is, where do you go? Because anything you do is going to be short term. We're not in a position to offer a manager a 4-year deal, because, again, we don't have a roadmap. We don't have an owner yet, because Foundation is trying to sell the football club. So if you do offer hypothetically, a Carlos Corberán at West Ham, a 5-year deal, you pay a compensation fee. Well, the new owner, which at the moment is maybe going to be John Textor, Dan Freakin, whoever it may be, and that's still all a little bit way off. Whoever that may be, they might want to go down a completely different direction. as a football club and go down a completely different route. So that then doesn't really work either. So what you go back again? Okay, so it's got to be a stopgap, a bit of a short-term gap until the end of the season, which at the moment that's what Sean Dyche is.
Yeah.
He is a stopgap to the end of the season because his contract ends at the end of the season. He is a stopgap, but ultimately this current stopgap is killing himself. He's having an absolute mare. He's having a stinker. The obvious one is he's without a job. It's David Moyes. Now, would David Moyes take a temporary role? Well, he did at West Ham. He took an 8 month, I think it was an 8 or 9 month contract at West Ham. And, you know, would he take it? You'd have to go and approach him and see what he said. But if he said no, what do you do? Who do you go to? You need to find the right man as well. So it's all very well and good sacking Sean Dyche, but we need a plan. We need a plan behind that. And again, that's where Kevin Thawer would have to come in as the sporting director. Technically, he would have to come in there. His job is to have a list of candidates. That's part of his role. That's part of his remit. And then obviously we'd have to probably look at a manager that's probably out of work. We probably couldn't really afford to take somebody from a football club because there'd obviously be a heavy compensation fee. So it's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one. But again, all that is the details. The fact of the matter is the current manager, he's not getting the best out of the players. So for that reason and that reason alone, he's under pressure, and rightly so.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, obviously, if they did relieve Sean Dyche of his duties, it would have to be an interim because number one, we've got an owner who's trying to sell the football club. Then what does that do if you give someone a 2 or 3 year deal that, and then the new ownership comes in and doesn't like that manager, and you're paying more money out for another manager? I think it would have to be an interim appointment, if I'm honest. Going forward, don't wrong, but we all sit here now hoping Sean Dyche wins the next 3 games, and it leads us to 3 victories, and we'll all be very, very happy with that. But the way we're playing at the moment, it doesn't look that way. Obviously, the way the players are, the way the fans are. Let's be honest, we are all a bit worried sick at the moment, the way everything's going on and off the pitch. I think as well, it just goes back, doesn't it? I suppose, Bobble, really, to like this is the problem when you don't have like a plan at a football club. I think we see it many football clubs now. They've all got plans, even though like you see Man United in the summer, it's still a bit of a mess. But at least you can see what they're trying to do. Like that, we just don't have anything. We got a manager and a director of football who, let's be honest, Kevin Farwell appoints the next manager. Is he the right person to choose the next manager because he could not even be there in the summer? Do you know what I mean? It's even stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That's where I have the sympathy for. They're wrong. I think some of the decisions transfer wise are questionable. Let's be honest. But also we're expecting a guy who potentially is not going to be here to make a decision on our next manager, which that doesn't really sit right with me, if I'm honest.
And I understand the logic. I understand your thought process there. I totally get it. Yeah, and I do feel sorry for some of the staff because, like I said, they need direction. Every club needs direction. They need a roadmap to know where we're heading. And at the moment, we don't know where we're heading, do we? And this is what I go back to the caveat of: it's okay to sack Sean Dyche if if you think he deserves to be sacked. That's absolutely fine. For me, again, I'll reiterate: I'll be heading into Leicester, and then I'll be assessing it after Leicester. And at the moment, there has been no talk to sack Sean Dyche. There's no talk. I can see a lot in the comments. And I know you're going to talk about the comments in a minute, Steve, but there's been no talk internally about sacking Sean Dyche at the moment. And that's why when I go back to, the club's been caught on the hop with this a little bit. Ultimately, you would probably be looking at a stopgap if you sack him. And again, I'll reiterate, the obvious one is David Moyes. David Moyes is available. Would he want it on a 9 month role? I don't know. You'd have to speak to him. And at the moment, we haven't approached him because, like I say, there's been no talk internally of sacking Sean Dyche. But this is a fast moving story, isn't it? That's what it is. And ultimately, Sean Dyche may, if he loses at Leicester, he'll have lost a further 3 games in the space of 7 days: Aston Villa, Southampton, and Leicester. And then you have again, we can laugh all we like. It's then probably another 6 points against Crystal Palace at home, who have also started really, really poorly. There's a cut-off point. Yeah. And it's just, where is the cut-off point for Sean Dyche at Everton? We've got a lot of issues. We all know about them. Evertonians are not stupid. We all know the issues. We're not asking to be for free-flowing football right now. We're not asking them for that because we all know where we are as a football club and what sort of state we're in and where Fard Mashiri has took the football club. And there's a bigger picture. We all know that. But the on the pitch matters are becoming just as serious. And that's not me fanning the flames. That's not me pressing the panic button. But the results tell you where we're at as a football club right now. We're rock bottom. We're lower than a snake's belly, we've got to react. We need a response, and that's got to come from the manager and his players. And if it doesn't, then the appropriate action should be taken at any football club, because every fan base should have standards, regardless of what's going on with the takeover. Your owner, that's absolutely fine. Again, we all understand that, but we should still have standards, and the football club should still have a standard. And the bare minimum this season is to avoid relegation and not flirt with relegation. And at the moment, we look like relegation fodder. That's what we look like. We look like a team that is clueless, leaderless, and managerless. That's what it looks like. So they've got to get a grip, and they've got to start Saturday. They've got to go to Leicester and get something. They really, really do. They've got to stand up, and they've got to bite down on the gumshoe. That includes the manager and the players, because I'm not excusing all the players here, because some of them have started the season incredibly poorly, really, really poorly. Some of them have started it. I think we need more from them as well. But ultimately, the buck stops with the manager at any football club. It always does.
Yeah. Just read some of the comments. Thomas Williams, absolutely fed up with Dyche. Haven't been Dyche out, but I am now. That last night shows how low the standards have become. Fan base are beaten. Even if we won on pens, there's nothing about us sleepwalking. Totally agree, Thomas. Question from Everton Luke: do we think yet another loss this Saturday would finally force the board's hand and at least consider pulling the trigger?
Well, at the moment, there has been no internal discussion about sacking Sean Dyche, mate. There's been none at all. And that's as far as I can say at the moment. Again, this is a fast moving story, isn't it? And obviously, you would now feel this is not information based, but you'd now feel it's almost becoming a game by game basis. I think the manner of the result is really, really important as well. Again, we need a response. So no, there has been zero talk at the moment, zero talk of relieving Sean Dyche and his staff from their duties. But obviously, let's just wait till after Saturday. Then it will be reviewed once again, and then we have Crystal Palace.
Yeah. Boxy27, I think Boxy27 is a patron as well, so thanks for joining, Boxy. If we are sticking with the manager and the players should sit around the table and have a chat about everything. I'm sure the players will come forward and tell him his style has to change. That did happen, didn't it, Bobble, at the end of, I think it was after Chelsea, wasn't it? They had a bit of a sit down with the manager and the whole Dice tracky stuff come out at the time as well. So I know that's
Yeah,
something been done before.
yeah. Sorry to interject, mate. Yeah, it absolutely it has. It's happened after Bournemouth as well when we got beat 3-2 the other week. It happened then as well. Yeah, if you don't think teams have meetings, then believe me, they do. They have meetings and they air their concerns, they air their opinions, and they talk about it. They're fellow professionals. Everton have got some highly experienced players in that team. We have a leadership group, the likes of Seamus Coleman, Idrissa Gana Gueye, James Tarkowski, Jordan Pickford. We have a leadership group that discuss with the first team staff, the likes of Ian Woan, Steve Stone, even if they don't want to go to the manager, you have a support network there. So there's meetings taking place, there's discussions, and yeah, they've aired their concerns, and the manager and the coaches have aired their concerns, and they've thrashed it out, and you shake hands and you think, right, let's all club together now. But again, it's a results business, isn't it? Football is all about results. That's what it's all about. And you can say all the right things, you can do all the right things, you can want to do all the right things, but ultimately, it is a results business. And if you fail to get results, you will be punished.
Yeah, and obviously Banksy too in the comments as well. No plan B. If the other team scores, we don't win. It's a fact. He's coached the enjoyment out of playing for the players. Sack him. And then obviously it goes back to Craig Jones in the comments to put and die through the middle and keep punting it long last night was madness. I totally agree, Craig. I think it was an absolutely. I think we said this on the pod after the game. It was an absolute mad sub. I think the fans' reaction, let's be honest, said it all really, what they thought of the substitution. And then it went from bad to worse with Ashley Young actually missing the penalty as well, which probably didn't help things as well. But yeah, I agree with you. I think putting in Dye up front was a bit of a crazy one. And then
Hmm.
I think, Virginia was carried on still booting balls up to, Brian and Keane did as well, which was a bit strange. And it kind of gave the fans no confidence, and it looked like it was giving the players a bit of no confidence as well, because it looked like they ran out of ideas, if I'm honest, after the 75 minutes, 80-minute mark, Craig. But yeah, I totally agree. It was madness.
Yeah, yeah. I think. Sorry, I think that shows you where he's at as a manager right now. I think that's a real indication and a real indictment of where he's at. I think he's struggling. I don't think at the moment during that game last night, I don't think he knew how to change the game, how to have an impact. Given, in all fairness, the bench was littered with young lads, but
Yeah.
I think he was struggling to kind of come up with something. And I think his in-game management has always been questioned. It's always been questioned, hasn't it, since his arrival at Everton? It was questioned whilst he was at Burnley at Turf Moor. But yeah, it was a baffling decision. In my opinion, if he wanted to get Dwight McNeil further up the pitch, which is what the plan was, they wanted to get Dwight McNeil into that number 10 role where he's primarily started the season, then the simple substitution would have been Ashley Young for Harrison Armstrong. Ashley Young then goes at fullback, and Dwight McNeil then can be relieved and go up into that number 10 role with Harrison Armstrong vacating the centre midfield role. You leave better one. That's what I would have probably have done. Don't get me wrong, Sean Dyche will have his reasons, his staff will have his reasons, they're professionals. But to then play the same way as if Dominic Calvert-Lewin is on the pitch or as if Better's on the pitch, I think that's ludicrous. That was absolutely baffling, and I think the whole crowd were baffled by it. And as I said on the instant post-match reaction over on Patreon, there was a good couple of minutes where Jack Harrison was then vacating that number 9 role. He was then playing there a little bit, and we were still lumping it to him. Bizarre. Didn't get it. Didn't understand it. I've never seen anything like it. I don't think. Crazy. Absolutely crazy decision. He'd have been better off bringing off Martin Sheriff,
Yeah.
bringing him off the bench. Excuse me. Bringing him off the bench. At least he's a striker. He knows how to play in the role. Okay, he's under 21, but it doesn't matter. I think it got a much better reception. I don't think, and I want to reiterate this, I don't think the fans were booing Ashley Young. They were booing the substitution because they didn't understand it. And I know you shouldn't always appease your fans as a manager. You have to be strong on the touchline. You don't want to listen to the fans sometimes. You've got to do what you think's right. And you want every man to live and die on the sword. But they weren't booing Ashley Young to an extent. They were booing the substitution that we were bringing off a striker for a 39-year-old fullback. They were booing the situation. That's what they were booing. That's what the crowd were discontent about. Not that we were bringing on a left back or a right back. It was just, what are we doing? That was why. Go in and win the game. The game was there to be won, Steve. The game was there to be won. And any half-decent outfit would have put Southampton to the sword and won 3 or 4-1 last night, comfortably. Because that Southampton team, I know it was a second-string Southampton team. Awful. Absolutely awful. They're very limited. They've got nothing. Very, very limited. And like I say, Everton only had to go up one gear and would have got through to the next round. And it wouldn't have eased all of the pressure on Sean Dyche, but it would have helped. Of course, it would have helped. It would have been a win.
Yeah.
And then we head to Leicester on the back of a win.
A few last questions, Bobble, and then we'll end the stream. Do you see Branthwaite starting on Saturday?
The current plan is no. The current plan is for him and Nathan Patterson not to feature on Saturday. That's the current plan, but it is only Wednesday the 18th. Obviously, things can change later in the week, but the current plan is no.
Okay. And obviously, I've seen a few people mention this as well about the dreaded vote of confidence today. We all know that how that ends. I do find it a bit strange that the club have come out 2 weeks on the bounce of a vote of confidence for a manager. I don't think you really see much of that anymore. I thought once is fine for me. If they're going to come out and back him, that's fine. But it's after 2 defeats now that they've come out and backed him, I think twice in the last week.
Yeah, I don't understand where Sky Sports are getting it from, what they're doing.
Yeah.
I can't speak for them, so I'm not sure. If I was the manager, I'd just want peace and quiet, and I just want to get along with my business, and you don't need to come out and speak to anybody on my behalf. I'm big enough, I'm old enough. So yeah, I don't understand what's going on. I don't know what Sky Sports are doing there, like I say, because I can't speak for Sky Sports. But in terms of, again, has there been any talk about Sean Dyche being sacked internally? The answer is simply no, none at all yet.
Yeah, and obviously I've seen a few more comments from Everton. FL Moyes 100% gets us safe in mid-table. A few other David Moyes shouts in there. I'm not also Alex saying I'm not convinced that Moyes can come in and turn it around. Sorry if this has already been asked. Is there any friction between the dressing room, between Dyche and the players? I think Bob will explain that. The good thing about this video that we're doing today as well, will be on our Patreon as well. So you can go and rewatch it if you want to. Also, if you could just like and subscribe to the videos, that would be great. Also, if you want to come and join us on Patreon, we've got loads of videos going up on a weekly basis. We try and get in the studio again this week, won't we, Bobble? I think it's a bit manic at the moment with playing midweek and then obviously the game on Saturday. So I think we're going to try and get in the studio before the end of the week, hopefully.
Yeah. If you're not a Patreon member, honestly, give us a go. There's so much content over on our Patreon, from articles, the Gold Forum, news, insight, information, pre and post match interviews, Alan Stubbs show weekly. We have a lot of shows over on there. So yeah, go give us a go. We've just started this YouTube live section, just as a bit of a side thing to our Patreon, isn't it? So yeah, this was a bit of an impromptu one. We've jumped on after last night. Obviously Ben can't be here today, nor can Paul, but yeah, we're trying to get as much content out as possible. It's almost becoming a daily thing now. We're very, very busy. So yeah, stick with us.
Yeah. I was going to say, Mrs. Bobble won't be very happy with the amount of times that he's on the video or coming to the studio. But like I said, guys, try and stick with it. It is tough at the moment. Let's be honest, we're used to this now, which is quite sad, really, that Everton are the biggest talk of the town again, going into another season. But like I said, like and subscribe to the videos, and thanks for watching us today. Take care, guys.